Hey everyone, and good morning. Hoping the audio comes through and everything is working well. It's a beautiful Thursday morning here on planet Earth, and it's the first live stream of the year, so I'm glad to be with you. Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction, and hopefully we're here for a nice, healthy-looking live stream. And we've got three guests coming on today, which is kind of exciting. Our first ever kind of like having a bunch. We've got Robb from Raconteur Press talking about his latest book. Then we've got Scott Huggins coming on, which is going to be really cool. He's got his own book, Spyglass Darkly. And then if we're lucky, we may also get Gabby Battelle from Denver jumping on to just say hi and hang out and talk about some other cool stuff. So what I figure is I would like to keep doing this every week. I'll do a weekly live stream. So that if you're kind of feeling, I don't know, if you're feeling kind of bummed about fiction or you can't seem to figure it out, you've got questions or stuff isn't working, well, come and hang out. It's like a coffee shop. Come and hang out and bring your questions and say what you think. And maybe we can figure something out together, right? I don't promise to have all the answers, but I can give you my suggestions and I can share with you how I sleep at night. You know, trying to figure stuff out, trying to keep writing. Running this wonderful community that Legend Fiction is. But the point of the live stream is just to hang out together. So what questions do you have? If you got any questions, drop them in the chat. I've got a laundry list of fun questions to get through from the Legend Fiction writing community. You know what? First one, we're just going to go with the first one. Could a lightsaber cut through Superman? And Joel, if you're joining, I hope I caught you if you are able to join, because I don't know where this goes, and I've never thought about this. I did think about him using a lightsaber to shave, but I think that's been out there for a while. So here's what I think we can do. For our schedule for today, in about an hour or so, at about 10:30, Robb is going to jump on. So what we can do is we're going to spend the next 40 minutes or so going over AMA and Q&A and questions and stuff like that. And I've got a bunch of really cool articles that I haven't totally read, but there's news and stuff that fiction authors can be aware of that I think can be extremely helpful to talk through, such as why Barnes & Noble, for example, is opening 60 new book centers or book centers, retail locations in this year. And they opened 70 last year. What do they know that we don't? Because when the rest of us look at the market, we go, nobody's buying any books anymore. How do I sell, right? Is it even worth it? And then there's incredibly interesting things happening in the world of self-publishing and indie publishing and authors becoming their own publishing houses. And that is extremely interesting for me. And of course, for a lot of members of our community, where we are basically all indie publishers and we're scrappy and we want to figure stuff out on our own. And we want to learn how to write good, which is why we have hopefully Gabby jumping on to talk about the writing school, creative writing school, which is now live, which is kind of exciting. So loads of updates. We also shipped 8 new updates this year at the turn of the year. No, 8? No, 9 plus 2 bonuses. So a bunch of cool things to talk about. And I had a fun conversation with someone that came up with a bunch of helpful habits and things when you're feeling really, really down about writing. You can't seem to figure it out. You can't seem to come back to doing it. And so there's one article I thought we could talk about that. And we also have a roundup article from our community, the Legend Fiction community, where authors shared what they thought, what their habits are, writing habits. And so we canvassed all of them and organized it into about 8 sort of major themes that are also really helpful to look through. So we honestly have way too much to talk about. And so if you've got any questions at any point, I would love to hear them from you. Go ahead, drop them in the comments. Welcome to anybody who's just jumping on. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. Hopefully you're having fun writing fiction. And if you're not, I hope that this is a chill, laid back hangout. We can just hang out and chat about writing fiction, any questions that you have. So like I said, we're going to start with news, and then we've got 2 guest authors, and then we've got a bonus author jumping on at the end. We're going to go all the way till about 12 today. So it's a nice, long, lovely live stream, starting with an AMA. So if you got any questions at any point, drop them in. Tell me, maybe where you're coming from. Where am I? Close to Washington, D.C. Can't really tell through these windows, but it was kind of a beautiful day earlier. Still kind of is. And yes, I've still got my Christmas tree up because why not as of this live stream. So let's talk questions. What's going through your mind? I've got this interesting question that well, I shared it with the community. I said, "Hey, I'm going live. Drop a bunch of questions," and a bunch of people dropped some really fun stuff in the chat. First one, this is totally funny, from Joel. Joel, if you're out there, I'm hoping you can argue with me on this one because I don't know where this goes. Could a lightsaber cut through Superman? Um, that's a funny one. I have no idea. Um, Obviously, they're in different worlds, and the little that I understand of how lightsabers work, so please, if there are any dorks in the chat, please correct me. The way that lightsabers work is a Jedi has to be in tune with the cosmic power of the Force, channeled through, I'll catch heat for this from some, channeled through the midichlorians, that's their access point to the Force, and then they have to focus the um, the adjustment of the kyber crystal in the lightsaber so that it can handle the energy without blowing up or harming them. And so it's a seriously delicate process. And it's not a purely mechanical one, which is actually kind of why I like it. Okay, that's the end of what I know. Superman, I mean, he's just OP, right? Draws his power from the sun. So I mean, if he's weakened by the kryptonite, I assume you can get up to pretty much anything. And if the latest movie is, it's the last thing that I remember because I watched it a couple of months back. He bruises and you can punch him and he bleeds and stuff. So one, if he's weakened by kryptonite, yeah, you could probably harm him, or cut through him. If he's at full strength, I'm kind of inclined to say no. The only thing that I could think of is if the Jedi was somehow using the Force to weaken Superman to stop him from being super powerful, then it could work. So if somebody's got a better reply, please enlighten me because I don't know enough about this, and this is a very serious scientific discussion. Okay, got another question from a community member. Shout out to Grace. Hi, Grace. She asks, how to create an author brand and a following before publishing. So that's a fun conversation, and it's a big one. I'll say one thing. I need to come back and do this at some point. I put together like my own little book of my thoughts on how to do branding and marketing and publishing. Well, not really publishing, but branding and marketing and then launching yourself online. And so most of what I'm gonna say is gonna come out of that book. At some point, I need to turn it all into, like, an audiobook or put it up on YouTube. So how to create an author brand and a following before publishing. There's 3 parts to that question. Let's see where we go. If you've got an answer, I would love to know what you think. Say hi in the comments. How to do that. So, first of all, how to build an author brand. First thing, what is a brand? Um, I really like the sort of mental approach. A brand is a superhero mask. So if you think of the difference between Superman, Batman, Flash, Daredevil, they're all putting on very specific, predictable identities. You pick up a Superman comic book or a movie, or a Daredevil comic book or a movie, you know what you're going to get, especially after you've engaged with it a couple of times, read a couple of stories. You know how they operate, how they talk, how they move about in the world, who their key enemies are, how they will never act. Daredevil will never um, go in a yellow air balloon with, yellow sunflowers, right? It's completely against his attitude, against his brand, his identity. Um, so an identity is a predictable way to act in the world, and that's what a brand is. A superhero is every superhero is like an exercise in branding. They're very clear sense of identity of who they are. Um, when you go to start a business or to start any sort of brand, you're doing the same sort of thing. You are a hyper complex and unique individual. And as a human being, you have to be able to adapt to every situation that you get into. When you talk to different people, you change how you act and how you talk to best connect with that person. Um, Being exactly the same person across all of your interactions doesn't work. And if you've ever met someone like that, they've often come across as stiff, psychotic, cold, weird. Um, the way that you talk to your grandmother versus the way that you talk to a guy on the street versus the way you talk to a child or your child, they're all slightly different. They all have slightly different degrees of warmth, of openness, of vulnerability. So you can't beat everything how do I say this? Uh, you can't have one attitude to everybody at all times. It's just not an appropriate way to act. But uh, with a brand, that's the exception. With a brand, you create a predictable way to act so that you can kind of relax and be that persona, be that attitude. Um, uh, every time that you go to do a specific thing or interact with specific kinds of people, you're going to act in that way. And we can get a little more detail about that in a second. And then that allows you, at the end of the day, you can take off your superhero mask, the mask of your brand, and you can put that down and you can go back to being the fascinating, complex human being that you are. But every time that you go and you put on that brand, and you act like that brand, you're going to be in that persona. Now, here's the challenging question: how do you do that as an author? Right? If you're doing it as a brand, like I don't know, you do roofing, or you sell websites, or you run an Etsy store, something like that. You can make a simple list of things that you decide you will do and you will not do. I will talk in these ways. I will, um, maybe have a bubbly and hyper energetic brand voice, or I will be moody and aggressive, or something like that. You pick an attitude and then you stick to it. People then come to expect that. They come to look forward to that. Some people will want, let's say, a web designer who is moody and, I don't know, aggressive. And that person puts on that persona or that brand, maybe because it's partly his personality. And it also attracts people who like that because he doesn't want to work with people who don't like that. So it's also a way to attract the right kind of people and to disincentivize or push away the wrong kind of people. That's another reason for a brand. You may decide that for your particular audience, they like this particular part of you, not the whole totality of your personality, because that can be all over the place. Just ask my wife about me. Uh, you're going to act predictably because when something acts predictably, especially when it comes to money, when something acts predictably, you can count on it. If you can count on it, you can relax around it, you can trust it, you can know what it's going to do today and tomorrow, and when you come back to it in 6 months. Um, so creating a business brand can be easier. And you it's like create a little manual and everybody on the team comes to chat about and become and embody and personify that. Now, if you're being an author and you're trying to create an author brand, this can be a challenge. If you're someone like me and you've got maybe ADD and you're interested in all sorts of things, um, can be a challenge because I'm interested in all sorts of things and I want to write all sorts of novels. So the kind of brand that I would create might be different to someone who might write one book a year. Let's say that you love romance novels or you love epic fantasy and that's all you do. It can be easier to create a predictable author brand around being good at the one thing. I think case in point, Stephen King. His author brand is very clearly horror, introspective, relaxed, long running, plenty of discovery scenes and so on. You expect that kind of content from him every time that he puts it out. You don't expect that from Brandon Sanderson. Um, Brandon Sanderson has a brand built around large epic adventures, obviously, with tons going on. So there's a very clear vibe. I'm hoping this is starting to make sense to you. If you can look at those authors and go, oh, each one has a distinct personality, and Brandon may himself be a whole lot more varied in his personal life, but when it comes to being an author and getting on camera, um, he's probably going to not talk about specific topics. He's going to really focus on people who love his stuff and his view on crafting fiction and life, and he's creating for them. And that's his brand, that's his relationship to his audience. So, all of this is to tee up the question for you: what is your author brand? You have to create that for yourself. You can also change it. You're allowed to change your audience, um, especially if it doesn't work, especially if you're testing. I think that if you are a teen, if you are younger, probably if you're under 30s, a lot of our brains and our personalities are like wet cement. And it can be, and I say this from my own experience, it can be a very difficult challenge. And I've found it to be a hard challenge to create an author brand while my personality and my brain is a bit, it's plastic, it's like wet cement. Because I'm still trying to figure out who I am. I'm still trying to figure out what I love and how much I love and want to focus and sacrifice and dedicate my life to. Some people are merely creating fiction just because it's fun and it's a hobby and it's not that deep for them, and they're just pumping out loads of really fun, epic stuff. Um, and therefore, it doesn't have to be that deep. And so you can simply say, my author brand is, all right, fast paced, epic fiction for young adults. And the stories feature, they're coming of age stories, and they're about, I don't know, people going on, exploring magical worlds, and they usually include a talking lightsaber. Something like that starts to get a handle on the kind of brand because you're now creating something predictable. You put that on your website, for example, you put that on your socials, and when people come to visit you, they can see this is what you say you are to make yourself different because a brand helps somebody answer the question, why should I pay attention to you versus somebody else? It creates distinction, it creates separation, right? So now the second part of the question. So the first part, how to create an author brand. Grace, if this was helpful, let me know. And then how to create a following before you've even published your book. So let's talk about that. First, I want to shout out to Kim in the chat. She said, I've been writing my fiction in Google Docs. My goodness, me too. Um, I watched the video on 22 writing tools, which was super helpful because I didn't even know there were writing tools, and I tried out Novelcraft and I like it. That's awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad it went well for you, Kim. Congratulations. Um, I'm pretty sure I wrote most of a novel. Yeah, Microsoft Word, Notepad, Google Docs, all of it. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. I'm glad that you're able to find the video. So, how do you build up a following before you've even published a book? What a great question. Today, I do think this is becoming a bigger deal for an author who wants to take writing seriously. You got to figure out what you have to say and what makes you interesting. This is one reason why I've got on the blog. See if I can remember it. There's a whole breakdown. Um, I think it's called the Epic Framework. If you Google it on the Legend Fiction blog, the Epic Framework. But you are so much more interesting than just the things you wrote in your book. If you were to think about your book that you've written is the distillation of a cloud and a cluster of things that you are fascinated by and interested in. And this goes from topics to themes to opinions to books you've read to movies you love. So if you don't yet have a book to publish, talk about that stuff. Build build your brand, build an audience, build a following around people who are like you. And how do you find people who are like you? You talk about shared things that you have, things that you have an interest. Um, talk about common interests. I love the definition of a friend. I think it was C.S. Lewis who said a friend goes, "Oh, you too, right? That's the definition of a friend." And sometimes you can be so surprised at people that you can become friends with when you simply talk about things that interest you. I am pretty awful at this, at building my own brand. Um, but routinely, I find I should not be afraid of the things I think, and I should simply talk about them or share them. Um, because most of the time, nobody cares. That's a hard pill to swallow. If you can build up the discipline, the practice of sharing online, okay? Because we're talking about being a modern author. If you don't have any sort of presence online to reach your fandom, reach your future fandom, it can be very hard to sell books. If you're trusting completely in the big industry to market and publish you, that's going to be a long journey. And they seem to be investing less and less in people who don't have any sort of online presence or footprint. So building up something is always going to be helpful for you. And as we're going to see moving into this new year, 2026 seems to be a really big year for authors doing a lot more self-publishing, direct to consumer sales, direct to their readers' sales. Got an article on that I want to come back to 2026 trends. See if I can get to it if we have time. But uh, authors now have so much more power than they ever did. And if you're ADD, like me, Father Roderick, he and I were chatting yesterday. We are talking about how the publishing industry was built for the tortoises. Think of the tortoise and the hare story. It was built for the tortoises who write one book a year, maybe. Um, they spend 2 years in revisions and then it finally gets out. But the funny thing is, I think today, the market and all of the tools and online has finally caught up to the fact that there are people who are able to like move at the rabbit's pace. And the rabbit is, of course, painted as the bad guy because he has no focus and he's spinning around and he's doing circles and he's doing the lap multiple times and he collapses asleep and does not complete the one thing that he could have breezed through. He could have smoked that turtle, but he didn't. So if you were to teach that rabbit focus, how many additional marathons could he have gone on to run? How many additional medals, state championships could he have won if he just had a bit of focus, which is what he didn't have. A ton of energy, just went everywhere. And so we all focus on well, the turtle is the smart one. And I'm thinking, me, with my personality, I will never be a turtle. I'm manic, I'm crazy. I am in love with way too many things. I can get way too much done and outperform a lot of other people. So I'm the rabbit. I need to learn focus. And this is what's so exciting about being an author today, is if you can learn the little bit of practice of focus, the market is there for you. You can outperform almost everybody, which is so interesting. And that's a whole nother conversation. But if you're building something, a predictable brand, you're laying groundwork, you're sharing what you think, you're sharing the movies you're watching, the places you're going to, the research that you're doing, the progress that you're making in your book, the topics that are related to your book. So if you're writing it, say it's set in a fantasy world, do you realize how much research you often have to do to write any sort of fantasy story? Um, if you come across something weird or interesting in your research, share that. If you get questions from friends and family about some decision that you made, share that. Um, oh my goodness. Almost everything that you think is backstory and research is all the kind of stuff that can be super cool to share with your audience. All of that is building up your following, building up attention for your book when it finally gets published. Obviously, it is so much easier to have anything, something on your website or available for people who want to follow you. And that's where what a lot of authors will do is they'll gift a little story. If you sign up, to their email list, it's like a little freebie. Sometimes they'll have an entire book done and then they will give that away and then they'll start selling the next ones. It depends on how prolific you are and how much you've got. The benefit to having anything like a little mini anthology that you create of 3 stories and you use that as a lead magnet to invite people to sign up and to follow you and you gift that to them and then you ask them at the end, what did you think? What would be something you would like to see? Or I'm writing a story about bigger novel about this sort of topic and follow me every week for a little bit of an update as a way to keep me honest and I want to keep creating for you and with you. um, and just talk with people, assume that they're your friends. um, I would recommend if you want to build a following, create a blog. Try to be human and try to be public. Now, not everybody can live stream like I'm messing around with here. Not everybody can go live and record videos. That takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. Um, if you build the skills for it and you build the systems for it, you can make it easier for yourself. And then you can show up and do it. And then, of course, if you do, you are in the top 3% of the world who actually create stuff like video and live streams, right? And the rest of the world are the people who show up to watch it. Not every author can do that, and they don't really want to. But you can write. Authors are amazing at writing. We kill at writing. That's kind of what we do. So double down on that. Um, Not saying it's necessarily going to be easier, but you gotta if you can find, for example, Substack can be awesome. So if you're sharing and blogging, I love how Substack makes it free to gather emails and gather signups, and it's a beautiful experience. And you can just focus on writing and not getting hung up or stuck in the details of sending out emails. I used to have an email list, straight up using an email tool, and the difficulty was I could have sent 100 emails in a year, and nobody would have known. Because there was nothing online that would have told anybody. They visit my website and it looks dead because nothing's happening. As opposed to blogging and something like Substack, as soon as you blog, instantly gets emailed out to people. And so 6 months later, new people come and visit your site and then they look at all of the activity that, this person's obviously got a lot to communicate. Let me poke around. Maybe I'll find a couple of topics that interest me. maybe they're worth subscribing. You're able to demonstrate publicly that you're interesting, you're worth following. Um, so, Grace, I hope that's helpful. Those are some thoughts. If you got any follow ups, let me know. So, to sum up, you asked how to create an author brand and a following before publishing. Pick a lane, pick an audience, pick a relationship you want to have with them. If you have a single kind of focus, you're only going to write these kinds of books and novels, that can be so much easier to create a predictable brand. Like I said, think of Stephen King and Brandon Sanderson. They don't really get outside of their lanes, and that is fantastic if you want to be a predictable kind of author. If you're someone like me, I love to write for children. I like to write, for young adults. I'd like to write for adults, kind of all over the place from science fiction to fantasy. It's mostly science fiction and fantasy. Um, so that's where I would bridge, not bridge. I would present myself as that kind of author. I would present probably myself more as an author of these are topics that really interest me. Um, Frankly, they're mostly fast-paced, actiony. They involve, unusual thinking. I like to prompt myself and go on an adventure with my readers to think about the world in a different way. So it's like a little bit of a twist. And so I would then go, let's talk about all of the books that I love, all of the kinds of stories and the kinds of movies. Um, as an author, you probably have opinions about them, and you probably have opinions beyond meh, it was mid, it was fire. Anybody can do that. Um, Most people reviewing movies or talking about books or the latest things that they watched and stories they enjoyed this past month. They might talk about the filming craft of it. They might talk about the artists involved in the project. But you, as a storyteller, you can look at the actual story elements. What kind of tropes are involved? What are some lessons that we can take from this? Why is a story like this helpful or not helpful? Um, Storytellers can get deeper into things, and we can connect with people at the level of story. It's also a valuable way for you to study what it is that you're taking in, because all of that's going to affect your writing. So that was a little bit of a long question. It's a big topic, um, and a brand is something you're going to keep evolving. It's you're going to keep building it as you keep getting clearer. I've been trying to build a brand for 10 years. I still haven't totally finished because I keep changing my mind about stuff. All right. Got a question here from JP Holler from the community. Hey, JP. So he asks about the role of the fantastic elements in fantasy. It's shifted over time. And then there's the rise and ebb of different subgenres. And so my reply back to him was like, it's a very big question. What do you mean? um, what's the question getting at? Depends on the books you read, of course. Because if you're reading like The Fairy Queen, which is an old classical one, or you're reading Fantasties by George MacDonald, or if you're reading, medieval level fantasies, like there's stuff in there. You've got dogmen and hairy men, and you got men with faces coming out of their stomachs, and you've got Prester John, and you've got the gray children or the green children coming out of the ground, and you've got the bishop mermaid who's captured and then thrown back. Like you got a lot of stuff. So, and then he says, I'm wondering about comparing the fantastic in Middle Earth, where it's epic, with Alice in Wonderland, where it's absurd, with maybe Legends and Lattes. He says he's only heard of it, where it's maybe more ordinary. What are the storytelling pros and cons on these different approaches? Well, storytelling pros and cons totally depend on the world vibe that you want to create. Um, each one is accomplishing something completely different. There's a different mind space that each one is in. Each one is within the context of the story. It is presenting um, a view of reality. But that's the funny thing about trying to present like a view of reality that's like total or totalizing. Um, because every person is going to see reality slightly differently. It's not to say that there is no based reality. There is. But it's really hard to get out of your biases and to be able to come to see reality in a way that is unified for every human person. Frankly, I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that that's possible to do as long as we are the kinds of humans that we are. And I think it's also a good thing. Our human bodies, our human perceptions, they are filters that filter through all of the data that's out there, the infinitely complex kind of universe, all of the personalities and the interpretations, and you dismiss everything except for what makes most sense for you and what you want to get out of life. It's basically how our brain works. Brain is a genius organ for filtering out and ignoring whatever does not serve you and what you're trying to do out of life. Same thing happens with creating fiction and creating your story. A good story is going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to filter out every single thing that does not fit the story you want to tell. So, I mean, you can't imagine Lothlorien elves in Alice in Wonderland. It's a category mismatch because he's exploring, semi-hallucinatory dream state where everything is ridiculous and messing with you um, to upend you and get you to think about life differently, as opposed to Tolkien, where in Lord of the Rings, there's no Cheshire Cat in Lord of the Rings. You could argue Gollum gets a little bit close, but even so, there's none of that cynical humor. I can't think of a single character in there that sort of approaches a Cheshire Cat sort of thing. Your Mouth of Sauron's got the mouth, and Bombadil's got the levity, but that actual kind of cynical, um, humorous, offbeat nature of the Cheshire Cat, it doesn't fit in Tolkien because he's filtering out everything that doesn't match a view of how to act in the world based on specific problems in the world. The problems that he's, messing with are what happens when you're dealing with massive existential problems of life and death, and of darkness and of light, and of healing and of harm, and of being helpless or being helpful, right? You can't, in a single story, you can't put everything in. That's why you do seasons, right? That's why you have seasons of a show to be able to expand and mess around with all um, other themes. But even then, there's certain themes you'll just never get into because they don't fit the vibe. They don't fit the intention of the show or of the story. Because I think of its nature, a story is a filtering mechanism. It's a lens. It's a telescope. It's a slice of life, and it's an interpretation of how to view and engage with the world. And the beauty of that is that you can, up to a point, you can explore almost everything in the world from that point of view. And I think that is the glory of a story. It's the benefit of a story is that you can take a point of view and then you can run it all the way to the end to see how it holds up. And if it does, well, maybe you got a good story. And then if you run it all the way to the end and then you start exploring other topics from the point of view of that story, and those hold up, and then you learn new and interesting things because there's a kind of learning transfer going on. Well, then maybe you've got a really good story. Um, a lot of stories don't. A lot of stories do dumb stuff, do weird stuff, do funny stuff. They're not meant to be any more nourishing than, I don't know, a cheeseburger and some sort of fast food. And you're not meant to go any deeper into it. And so the story, you can't rely on it. You can't build a life on it. You can't take a lot of advice from it. And and so it goes in the dollar bin. And so it's and it doesn't become something that endures. Some stories endure and some don't. Not all are meant to. I don't think it's appropriate for us to want to try to create something that endures. Um, I think you create and tell and work on a story that matters most to you. And then maybe if enough people love it, well then it might endure because there might be like enough buy-in and belief in that, yeah, this is a shared thing that we all agree. This is all presenting really well. So, JP, I have no idea if this answers your question, but those are some of my thoughts just looking at that. And then, goodness, Tracy asks a question about discussing the process of taking books to a screenplay. Hi, Austin. It was good to see you for a minute. Um, had to run off to work. It was good to have you here. If you got any questions at any point, my friend, say hi, drop it in, or just drop it anywhere, and we can come back and chat more about it. Um, okay, the process of taking books to a screenplay. I have no idea. I have no idea. This is something I'd be very interested to know. Um, Out the gate, here's the little that I do know because I've read a couple of screenplays, and I actually really love the format of a screenplay, and I've tried not writing them, but I've written things like like dialogue only back and forth with like minimal blocking. I'll tell you what I love about that mental format for writing fiction, because if you're like me, as a teen, you get into writing and you spend a whole page on description that does nothing to actually advance the plot. And you're marinating in the gorgeousness and the lusciousness of all the description that you can do. As you're practicing and getting really good at it. And you don't have a mentor to come in and go, "That's great. Story actually begins on page 2. Dump the rest. Include only exactly what is needed to actually tell the story." Because if it's like that line, you don't introduce, for example, a gun on the mantle unless it's going to be used later. I probably won't have any time to do this today, but I made this mistake in a story. I introduced a knife in the character's um, belt early on in the story, and then I did nothing with it later on. So I've got to either use it or lose it, because it does nothing to include that little detail. Unless it's to show, for example, that the character is armored up, stuff like that, which is not what I was doing. So it wasn't an intentional thing. That's part of the challenge when you're writing, especially when you're younger. Writing by default, you're a bit of an NPC when it comes to writing. I've got a really cool idea, and instead of actually pulling that idea with a whole lot of attention onto the page, you're running through a skill tree of phrases and ideas that you read from everywhere else, and you're literally copying and pasting, cutting and pasting ideas um, onto the page. So how original are you being? Well, there's a question. Um, but that's one thing that I love about screenplays. Screenplays can be so helpful as a format. I don't know how to create one, how to write one. But just looking at that page, if you've ever done that, go and Google a screenplay. Look at that page. Most of what I've seen, the blocking of the action beats and the description of the location, there's basically none of that. The entire focus is on what I've understood anyway. A character in action, engaging with other people, and because it's for a movie, you can't really have a lot of in your head narration unless that's really the intent of the story. I'm trying to remember a movie with a lot of narration. Um, I don't know, maybe Memento or something, that Nolan movie. I think there's a lot of narration in there. Anyhow, um, most movies are all about prompting people to get in conversation and chat with each other. You're using dialogue to reveal. Um, that's one. I love that approach. I think that if you can do that a lot in your fiction, don't the whole show don't tell thing. So show don't tell means every opportunity that you can use sensory data and active, lived moments to immerse the reader in the experience of the character, as opposed to a little more of like Charles Dickens, for example, where he will tell you what's going on, as opposed to immersing you in the experience. They're two very valid and totally different writing styles. Um, it's often incredibly helpful to do both. I don't think it's practical to run an entire novel off of one, but um, uh, where you need to like compress time and sort of get through things really quickly, use tell. Where you want something is like really important and you want to feel through the whole thing, use show. And dialogue can be awesome, especially if you're not if you're in somebody's head. The fun side of something like narration means you can have an unreliable narrator, which I love. Now, I'm not good at, but I've loved it when I've seen it done, because you're now constrained to the interpretation and the bias of that character, how they see the world, which may not be true, may not be accurate. Their understanding of things may not be accurate. Um, And you can own that and you can lean into that for a unique voice, and also to dangle red herrings in front of your reader and to misdirect them and to confuse them. Um, with a lot of screenplays, again, it's my opinions, what I've seen. It's focused on a lot of dialogue, a lot of people moving, and invariably in dialogue, nobody is telling the truth immediately. It's got to be teased out. I mean, you just look at your real life talking with somebody else. I think there's a rule of thumb that I've seen when writing dialogue in a story: never straight up say the truth. Always hide it or hint it, because nobody ever wants to reveal the real reasons why they're doing something, because those are very private and personal, and you may not totally trust the person that you are engaging with. Usually, you will resist saying exactly what you mean because you're not sure how it's going to be received. I mean, doesn't that just sound like real life? So, um, in dialogue, when you give um, opposing motivations or slightly differing motivations or differences of personality to those characters, you get the crackle and the banter and the reason to keep reading, because there's a little bit of conflict. I think maybe this is my opinion. When we hear conflict, the idea, we think automatically of people being really mad at each other, and there's a lot of heated argument and heated conversation and stuff like that. And it that's certainly true, very conflicting. But when it comes to dialogue, you aren't always going to have that. I think what we're trying to avoid in dialogue is two characters agreeing with each other the whole way through a conversation. You've probably read those in novels. I think those conversations often fall very flat. They feel very boring. Um, what are some ways that you can fix that? Because conversations like that can often tend to info dumping, where two characters are kind of mutually congratulating each other and just info dumping together. Well, what if one person doesn't know and the other person is and they're asking questions from the person who does know? Okay, well, that allows us to insert ourselves inside the character who doesn't know, and they can go on a learning journey. That can be more interesting. The downsides is um, it can be short question, long info dump. Short question, long info dump. That can get trite, can get boring. So you need something else in there to make it more of an engaging conversation. And that's where maybe the guy's asking the question, but he doesn't like the answer. Or he's asking the question, but he wants a specific answer out of the person. Maybe he keeps interrupting, or he keeps disagreeing, or keeps trying to take them back to this other thing. And maybe the person who is answering the thing doesn't want to talk, or doesn't want to tell them, or is desperately trying to hide a truth from the person answering the question because maybe they believe they're not ready to hear it, or they don't want to talk about it yet. It's not the right time. Well, now you've got conflict, and it's inside the characters and it's also between them. That can make such fun dialogue. Um, so to wrap up, as a writing habit, if you find that getting into writing takes a long time, and it feels slow and hard for you, um, sometimes that can be because description and exposition can be heavy. But if you can jump right into characters and persons, getting into conversation with each other, and then doing things, right? Don't just have them standing together, squaring off, and just talking. Notice how every time in movies, um, anytime somebody has a conversation, somebody gets up and goes over to the side table and they pour a drink, or they start frying pancakes, or they start um, sanding a chair or doing something, and then the other person might then get annoyed um, that they're not being paid attention to, which creates additional tension for the conversation. um, Keep characters in motion, keep them in action. The beauty of a screenwriting approach is that the whole focus is on characters and conversation to reveal and share what the story is, and to make each other talk through stuff. So, a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring on Sam Robb. He is our first guest. We're going to be talking about his book. Tracy, I have no idea if any of that I shared was helpful, but as you can see my corgi in the background there, if it was, maybe you've got some additional questions or you're learning some of your own things. Um, I think it's a fun conversation to keep having. I don't know that I'll ever learn to write a screenplay, um, but I do think invariably screenplays uh, are more in the moment experiences, in that you can't have a lot of backstory and long descriptions about the life of the family and all of this, because then you have to rely to like really clunky maybe narration or panning over tons of pictures, and so everything has to be turned into what does a person experience in the moment, and maybe you can do a little montage, um, but you can't tell everything that you can get up to in a book. You can have these glosses and these side tangents that flesh out the character, but in a screenplay or in a movie, the only things that really go on there are the things that can be acted out by a person, by a character. It's a good challenge. I personally like that approach when I go to write a story, to write it like it was a movie. So there's minimal stuff that wouldn't go into a screenplay. I don't know. Hopefully, it's an interesting question, an interesting answer. All right, I'm going to bring Sam in. Hey, Sam, I'm bringing you on the live stream. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir. Trying to find.
You're
I'm like,
good.
oh,
Hold
where's
on.
my tab? What's going on?
Let me put you in my headphones so that my microphone doesn't like repeat stuff. Sorry, I should have done this earlier. Hopefully it'll let me do it now that I'm actually live streaming. Give me a second here. All right, change the speaker over to testing, testing. All right. Say something.
Hello, hello, hello.
Perfect. Yep, I hear you. Good morning. Happy New Year. Haven't seen you since, I don't know, since the Haven, since Legend Haven, I think. Have
Yeah,
we met since then?
October. Yeah.
Already 2 months now.
It doesn't seem like it. Holy cow! It
It's
seems
been
like
so
forever.
fast. Well, yeah, it's been a while, but then I've also been following you on Substack, and I don't know who is behind the Raconteur Press, memes and publishing and updates
Mhm.
and stuff. I'm assuming it's a team. If it's you, I'm doubly impressed. Um,
No, it is a team.
okay,
We've got a bunch of folks that are involved on that, and we all try to contribute and keep it up.
got it, got it. I was trying to imagine how you might stay sane with something like that, 'cause there's a lot. Uh,
It is.
all right, I'm going to change. There we go. So, this is cool. I've got you for a half hour, and then I've got what's his name? Scott is jumping on to talk about his book in
Oh,
about a
Scott
half hour
Huggins.
as well. Yeah, Scott Huggins.
Oh, that is awesome. I have a little bit of unique insight for Scott's book because my wife was the structural editor on that.
Okay.
So I got to, while she was working on that, I swear, I would be sitting at my computer. I'd be working on stuff. I'd be, writing something or doing whatever, and then, from over by the fire, I'd hear, "No!" And just a whole stream of like, she did what? And just awesome, like listening to her get into the story was fantastic.
Oh, that's
That was very
funny.
good. So highly recommended if I like Scott stuff. I've read some of his uh he does basically a series, James and Harriet, that is about a veterinarian to the dark lord after the dark lord takes over, and
Oh gosh.
it's fantastic. So uh no, I
Well,
guess I
good. That
should
sounds
stop
fun.
talking about other people now.
All right. Well, let's get into yours. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna clip this from the live stream so that we get a standalone conversation with you. So let me be all official and stuff and bring it in. Hi, friends, and welcome to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction, joined today by my good friend Sam Robb, who is the founder of Raconteur Press. Is that right, Sam?
No.
No.
That's Ian McMurtry. I am simply a happy peon. I was abducted at LibertyCon last year along with my wife to work with them. But yeah, it's Ian McMurtry, otherwise known as Law Dog, who started it all off.
Fantastic. Well, you've now got a book, and I read the first part of Sigils. Um, Tell us about your new book and where did the inspiration come from?
Inspiration's really easy. I like to go for walks around Pittsburgh. I've been doing that for a couple of years. I also like going down back alleys and through unusual places to try and figure out, try and see interesting things, just to keep the walks interesting. Um, so Sigils is born out of the graffiti that I saw around Pittsburgh over the course of a couple of years. Just a bunch of things that kind of come together. But I would say the two biggest ones were under the 31st Street Bridge was a huge. This is like we're talking like a 20-foot uh, piling for the bridge that someone had somehow managed to draw a huge circle around with spray paint, and across the top in French. Why French? I don't know, but in French it said, "This is not a door."
Hmm.
And of course, I looked at that and I said, "That is absolutely 100% a door." I have no idea what somebody was doing here, but that's absolutely a door. And the question was a door for what? Um, and later on, I saw another bit of graffiti that said, "Who are you really?" That was all it was. It was scrawled on a bridge. "Who are you really?" And that led to those two things in conjunction led to my mind kind of churning and coming up with the idea that Pittsburgh, it's the city of bridges. It's we've got the three rivers. We actually have a fourth river, supposedly underneath the city, a
I was going to say, how
glacial.
do you get supposedly? Okay, under the city.
Yeah, there's a glacial bed that runs under the city that has its own flow. Um, but we have
Wow.
these rivers, we have these bridges, we have these tunnels and stairs all over the city. And I'm like, yeah, this is the type of place that would have additional bridges or additional portals or additional openings to different realms, and kind of just went with that. So Sigils became the story of a young man finding that out in probably not a happy way by attracting the attention of something that he really shouldn't have.
Yeah. Okay. How much can you tell us more about that?
Well, so James is a high school student. He is a graduating senior. He is looking forward to graduating and trying to figure out where his place is in the world. He thinks that it's going to be going to art school, and through the course of the book, his dreams get crushed, unfortunately. But he also finds basically a new calling in life. Uh, so he meets a girl who is strange and mysterious, uh, who also seems to find him interesting. He meets a Marine who is not so mysterious, but and he wishes that he never had to meet, but gets to know him, and together they end up dealing with this thing that has come through one of basically found a way into uh, James's dreams and is kind of pursuing him and stalking him through his dreams. And
And when you say a thing, it's like a horrible black predatory vampiric je ne sais
yeah,
quoi.
this is if you are familiar with the legends of fairy and the fae and whatnot, there are a number of creatures that are that you've got the black dogs, catchy, various other uh, creatures that are and they're animals, they're hunters, but they have human intelligence. So this is a situation where he's not just dealing with some sort of animal or some sort of creature that's coming after him. It's something that specifically has identified him and has gotten a from very early in the book, you can see has gotten a taste of his blood and wants more.
Yeah. How did you come up with that? How did you go from seeing um what is that? What's that line from the song? Signs on the tenement walls to uh black she predator stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
and then a young teen. Like how did you put those together?
um, I wanted here's ultimately right. I wanted to write the kind of book that teenage Sam would have liked to read. So I wanted some tension. I wanted some horror. I wanted a little bit, obviously, a little bit of a love interest there. Um, I wanted some things that kind of just would have spoken to me as a teenager, and specifically as a teenage boy. I wanted the call to adventure, the idea that you're growing up and the world is changing. It's becoming something different, and you don't know quite where you fit in, and you don't know quite what's going on yet. Um, you think you do, but there's a lot of surprises there. And me being me, right? I couldn't just do a coming of age book or anything like that. I had to throw horrible demons and monsters and whatnot into it just to keep it interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, chase your character up a tree and then shoot monsters at him. Yeah, not rocks.
Exactly.
Um, you live in Pittsburgh. Are you I don't haven't been there. You're a Pittsburgh boy, born and bred and all? Is that part of your
Yep.
DNA?
Yep. I am a Yinzer. If you know anything about Pittsburgh, that's one of our words that we have here. We have a whole, like a lot of other places, we have our own little dictionary. Um, but grew up here in a little town called White Oak. Went to school at Carnegie Mellon University. Left for a couple of years to go out to California when I was in the Navy, but then came back because of family. And
Mm.
family is a big thing in Pittsburgh. That's actually something that I have had a couple of people comment on, is that in the book, James has a very good relationship with his mother. She's a single mom. She's going through nursing school, trying to finish things up there while he's finishing up high school, and he's very supportive of her. She's very supportive of him, and I wanted to have that positive relationship there
Mhm.
because family is important. I moved back to Pittsburgh because of family, my wife's family. We've raised our family here, uh, and I think that's something that a lot of it's the cheap and easy way out to say, like, oh yeah, here's so and so, he's from a broken family or she's from a broken family, and there's no support around her, so she's all alone. Um, in this book, actually, you've got James has a lot of support, whether he admits it or not, whether he likes it or not. He's got family, he's got teachers, he's got friends, and they all kind of rally around him to help him deal with this situation.
What's been some of the responses so far? Have you had other people and have you had young people reading it?
I've had some folks that have told me that they enjoy it. Someone told me that it felt like a young Harry Dresden book, and
I could say that, yeah.
I, I I'm great. I'm flattered by that. I don't think my writing is nowhere near Jim Butcher's, who is an amazing man and one of my inspirations. Uh, but no, it's I've had a bunch of people tell me that they've read it with their kids, and they've enjoyed it. They've talked about the situations and what goes on. There's nothing truly, I don't think, horrific in it. If your kids are watching Stranger Things, there's not going to be anything in here that's going to freak them out. So I'd go for more of a psychological horror rather than kind of a
Slasher horror
gut
thing.
wrenching slasher
Yeah,
horror.
yeah.
Yeah.
In developing the story, what's your method? What's your process? How did you go from, um, well, I've got my main character, I've got this compelling thing with sigils going on, I've got my bad guy. Then what? How do you go from those core elements to building it out to actually then writing the whole thing? What's that process look like for you?
I am a combination of a plotter and a pantser. So I've heard people refer to that as a plantser. Um, I've got milestones. I have ideas and scenes that I want to hit
Mhm.
throughout the story. Um, and I definitely had an ending in mind for Sigils. It turns out that that ending was not the ending, because by the time I finished it, it was about 133, 135,000 words. So when I
Wow.
took it to Raconteur, they said, yeah, this is 2 books. So can we kind of split up? So there is a sequel. I was working on that this morning, as a matter of fact. Um, and the end of the sequel is the original end of Sigils. But I have when I sit down and start writing, I will write these scenes that I like, these things that I have in mind that I'm like, okay, we've got this scene in the hospital, we've got this scene on a bus, got this scene, in this particular place, and
Mhm.
then kind of organize those and think, okay, how do these connect? What happens in between these to make the story flow?
Mhm.
Um, so, a lot of times I will have those big ideas. Here's the opening. Here's a couple of scenes. Here's the climax. Here's what I want. I write those, and then I sit down and go, okay, now what happens in between? What drives the character from this scene to this scene? Who impacts them? What influences them? And what happens? Because you know life is not 100%, high tension, high stakes, no matter what, very, movies want to tell you. There's always downtime. There's always
Mhm.
time to think and to reflect, even if it's just a few moments. So I try and put that together and build the story out of those big elements with some softer or slower bits in between.
Yeah, amazing. For the story nerds, or mostly the people watching this live stream, this show, are there frameworks that you follow, or have you created some of your own, um, yeah, that help you just get through something, or do you field test it against a couple of different ones? How do you do that?
There, one of the things that was interesting when I started looking into understanding, how do these, all these different frameworks. So you've got 3 act structure, 4 act structure, save the cat, all these different different plotting techniques. Um, I was trying to wrap my head around all of that until I
Mhm.
finally found a web page where someone, and I've got it saved away for reference. Someone did that already, and basically came up with, here's the grid, and here's all the different story organizational techniques, plotting techniques, and here's how they all map out. And when you're talking about this term or this scene in this kind of plotting mechanism, it maps to this point in this other one. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, they're all the same. They're pretty much,
Mhm.
you've got the same beats in the same places. They call them different things, or they might split up one particular scene or one act into 2 acts in this structure, but then
Mhm.
they'll have, yeah. So once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't really matter what I choose or what I work with.
Mhm.
So for the sequel to Sigils, I'm working with Save the Cat, just because I tend to think a little more cinematically.
Mhm.
I have this movie in my head that's running as I write, um, and it kind of fits with what I want to do a little bit better for an action oriented book.
Yeah.
If I were doing something else, I might pick like a 3 act structure if I was going for more of a traditional play. But yeah, for me, it's more about understanding where those key points are in the story.
Mhm.
You're going to have the rising action, that you're going to have the introduction of secondary characters or a secondary plot, that you're going to have the midpoint where things shift, and then you have the Dark Night of the Soul. It's about 3/4 of the way through, where can I do this? Can I make this happen? And
Mhm.
am I going to continue, or am I going to walk away? All of those together, if you think about that, those are those are the fun scenes. Those are the ones that I already want to write anyways.
Mhm.
So kind of get those out of the way and then figure out how to put them together.
So it sounds like what you definitely don't have is a problem with a soggy middle, where it gets boring and you feel like you're grinding through it to get to all the fun parts. What I read was just so fun and fast paced. I imagine that sounds like you kept that up all the way through.
I tried. I tried. The you do have problem. The middle is always a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got this long period of, hey, I need to show some action. I need to have some fun. Um, so for Sigils, I think it was easier for me because if you think about it, right, I've got this thing haunting James in his dreams, so I got to have some fun playing around with dream landscapes. With the idea of like, oh, okay, here he is in a library, here he is in one of his favorite streets in Pittsburgh. Pull all these things together and kind of combine it with all the things that can go wrong in your dreams, right? When you try and open the door and it won't open, when you try and run against the wind and for some reason
Yeah.
you can't make that happen. um, so I have some fun playing with all of that and make that all work together.
Mhm. Um, you mentioned Pittsburgh. It sounds like you've grounded the story very realistically in Pittsburgh. Like, could you run a tour at some point of the locations your character ran through? Were you that attentive to details, or are you a little looser about that?
I was a little loose in some regards, but for the most part, uh, no, I could walk you through. I could show you. I could show you the bridge where uh, James and Meg meet. I could walk you through the across the trails and the path that Meg takes to find the abandoned building that she takes up residence in. The strip is it's part of Pittsburgh. It's a very significant part of Pittsburgh, and I can show you where they have pizza, where they have coffee,
That's so
where
cool.
yeah. It was a lot of fun. So there is a little bit of like, oh, maybe it's not quite that far to get from one place to another, or maybe this coffee shop really isn't there, but there's another one. But I tried to make make Pittsburgh part of the
Mhm.
story, because
Yeah.
to me that's what urban fantasy is about. The city, the character of the city is part of the story.
That's so cool. Um, well, in our last 10 minutes, I've got a list of quick fire questions that I want to try to annoy you with. But first, what was something that, as you're crafting this book, I imagine you had to do some sort of research. What was the most unusual thing that maybe you learned while you were crafting this book or researching for it?
um, Dreams. I had to understand, okay, what are common dreams, what are common tropes in dreams. One of the fascinating things that I came up with that I found out about dreaming is that most of the time when you're in a dream you cannot read. The
Mm,
part of your brain that processes written language shuts down,
mhm,
and that's kind of interesting, because there were points where I intentionally allowed James to read in the dream, knowing that this is an indication that he's gone from normal dreaming to something else,
mm, mhm.
which was actually a little subtle. I'm not sure that everybody would get it, but yeah, the idea that, and not only that I had to do that research into dreams, but that made it into the book as him doing that research into dreams to try and understand what's going on with him and understand the rules of this
Oh,
this
cool.
strange world that he found himself in.
That's so cool. Ah, dreams and dream work is a um, pet topic of mine. Absolutely fascinated by it. Actually, just started yesterday. I wrote 2 chapters in a novel that I don't know if I'll finish, but literally about um, kind of a Nolan take on migrating dreams that migrate across
Mhm.
minds. I don't know where it goes. Seems crazy talk.
That sounds
Uh,
awesome, though.
all right, well let's get into some of these questions. Make sure we get some of these in. Okay, you can either answer really short. You can go as long as you want, or you can say skip. So, recent movie that you've watched.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen a movie. I honestly think one of the last ones that I saw was one of the Avengers movies.
Okay. Okay. So you haven't seen Stranger Things?
No, I've watched a couple of episodes kind of going on in the background while my daughter's been watching it with her fiance, but
Okay.
no.
Okay. Recent book. It's the latest book you've read.
Oh, A Pitiless Rain, Glenn Cook.
Okay.
So I'm
Um,
still working my way through that, but I love Glenn Cook, and he's just a fantastic writer, and really enjoy his Black Company stuff. So I've been looking forward to this.
nice. What's your number one writing habit to get in the zone?
My wife, this is a new one. This is a new one. My wife got me an automatic coffee maker. I'm a little bit of a coffee snob, not huge. I like fresh
You're in
ground
safe
coffee.
company here.
So she got me a coffee maker that you put the beans in and it does the grinding and but the thing for me that I love about it is I can schedule it for like 7 o'clock.
Oh, that's nice.
So I get up, you know, by the time I make it downstairs, there's coffee, and I can literally grab the pot of coffee, the carafe,
Mhm.
and grab my coffee mug and come upstairs and pour a cup of coffee and sit down and write and start writing. And the last 2 days that has been have been the first chance I've had to really do that, and it's just been phenomenal. I'm like, this is awesome.
That's
I
great.
come upstairs, I close the
Yeah.
door, I've got my coffee here, I've got my computer here, I can just write. Um, the dog comes in, sits up, lays down at my feet. It's awesome. I love it.
That's well, I mean, talk about an incentive to not sleep in then, huh? That thing's going off and then
Oh
it's gonna
yeah,
cool off on its own.
it's waiting for me. It's right there,
Yeah.
and the smell fills the house. So it's like I wake up, I'm like, yeah.
Ah,
So
that is the best. That is the best. Who gives you inspiration for writing?
my wife does,
Yeah.
and not in the lovey-dovey, ooh, honey, I believe in you sort of way. Although she does that, right? She's incredibly supportive, but she will occasionally like show me something or say something or whatever, and then she listens to me as I let my little brain squirrels just run away, and then she does the most important thing she can do for me, which is she stops me and she looks me in the eye and she says, "Write that down." So, so I've got a document that's full of all of these random ideas that I just kind of stream of consciousness come out while we're walking or talking or whatnot. And she's like, "Write that down." So whenever I have to go back and I'm like, oh, I need to write a story about, a fireman, and oh, that's right, we were talking about this, and I can go look it up. So she inspires me to
Mhm.
think and to come up with these and to write them down so that I actually can use them.
That's cool. I could see, I could see you going, "Don't ask me a question unless you're wearing a wire." What's one thing that you regret spending money on?
Oh, wow, that is a hard question because I have regretted spending money on things. Um, I would say, and apologies to any of the fans out there. Uh, I bought a Chromebook a couple of years ago to use as a writing laptop, and stunk. Hated it. It was the keyboard. It was one of the best keyboards that I think I've used in a long time, but the
Mhm.
actual machine itself was underpowered. It required a network, obviously. All the stuff that I none of the stuff that I wanted to use to write was on it.
Mhm.
Um, so I ended up going out and getting a MacBook Air, and about 5 6 years ago, and it was no looking back. It's awesome. So
Nice, nice.
use your Macintoshes.
There you go. What's a book you wish more people knew about?
I'm going to name a couple. One is Changeling by Doris Pacercia. She died recently. I regret that I never got a chance to meet her. Um, she is a was a fantastic writer, and that story, um, if you read it, you're like, man, this is like people going from world to world and monsters and intrigue and this whole
Okay.
plot, convoluted stuff, and it's like 140 pages. I mean, you want to talk about something that just goes bang, 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 bang. It's fantastic. Um, and then the other one is Godstalk by PC Hodgel,
Okay.
which is again, it that is 100% urban fantasy. My definition of urban fantasy is that the city has to be a character. Ty Tastagon in that book is an unbelievable character, and I recommend that book to just about everybody that I can uh, come across that is willing to read fantasy.
Amazing. You've said that now twice, and I'd like to come back and ask you about this sometime, but we're out of time. Where you talked about the city being a character in the story. Um, Side note: have you ever read or heard of Robert Moss when it comes to the topic of dreaming?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. He's somebody I discovered a year ago, and absolutely love this guy and what he does. Okay, we got to start wrapping up. So where can yep, Scott is in the lobby, so I'm going to bring him in a minute, and you two can say hi and so on. But Sam, where can folk find you online and get their copy of Sigils?
You can find me online at samrobbwrites.com. That's SAMROBB writes.com. And that has links to all of my other social media. Most of the places that I am on, you can find me at the handle Sam Robb Writes. So and then you can find all my books on Amazon. There's Sigils. I've got a collection of flash fiction called One October Night, a bunch of short novels, and then I should have another book coming out with Celine Press a little bit later on this year. So I'm really excited about that one. That is just a fantastic book. That's another world that I've always wanted to write in, and it's much more of a dark gothic fantasy.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to that one coming out.
Oh man, talk about saving the best for last. You just have to come back, and I'd love to hear about where that goes when you're ready to talk about it.
All right.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to bring in Scott. Hi, Scott. Welcome.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Dominic. It's nice to meet you. Hey, is there
Likewise.
a link that are we live? Is there a link I can throw out there for everyone?
Yeah, there is. If they head over to YouTube and then look for the LegendFiction channel, we are currently live.
Okay. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you.
So Scott,
All
Sam was
right.
just singing your praises as soon as he jumped on before he got to his book about how epic your work is. So I'm excited to hear about all of this.
Why? Thank you, Sam, and I enjoy Sam's work too. And I've really always appreciated him as a wonderful fan and friend.
I was telling Dominic how I listened to Sherry while she was reading through your book, and just how she would at random points just gasp or be like, oh, "No!" So
Oh, that's
that was
wonderful,
actually
boy! I
that was
can't
actually
tell
really
you
cool.
that is absolutely the best the best thing ever to hear easily.
Are you able to find the link there, Scott?
I think so. Yes. Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
And
Okay.
hello
Well, I'm
to
ready to
the
go.
classroom. I think you said there's people around you. Hello to everybody.
Well, at the moment, actually, there aren't, but hello, but thank you. Didn't go quite as I planned. It's all right.
No worries. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. And what I'll do is I'll clip this out and I'll shoot you a link afterwards. And hopefully it
All
helps
right.
more people get a copy of Sigils. And can't wait to have you back.
Thank you, man. It's good talking to you again, Dominic.
Likewise. All right. Catch you soon.
Scott, see ya. Enjoy.
See ya.
So thank you so much for joining us, Scott. We're going to
Thank you so much for having me.
absolutely a pleasure. Scott, sorry, Sam has spoken so highly, so I'm excited to hear about this cool stuff, this excellent book that you recently published. You're part of a live stream I started like, I don't know, hour and a half ago. I'm going to go for another hour, and you and I've got about a half hour here. And what we'll do is I'll clip this out afterwards and shoot it over to you so that you can also make use of it for sharing what you do. But this is, I'm kind of calling it the friendliest fiction live stream because I don't know of one that's out there. And we talk about all sorts of stuff from things like news and updates that's happening in fiction and marketing around the world. And if I can swing it, we'll do some live editing sometimes. And then I have guest authors on like yourself to talk about what you've been up to. So yeah, and we're part of a writing community. And I bumped into Sam, gosh, 6 months ago through Raconteur Press, and he got involved with our recent Legend Haven convention last year, which was an all online event. And he's just awesome. So I've had him back multiple times.
That's wonderful.
Alrighty. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to pretend that I'm all professional and stuff, and bring you in, and then I can, like I said, clip it out for a little later.
Very
And
good.
friends, if friends are joining, say hi in the comments. We can bring them up towards the end of the half hour, and then probably in a half hour from now, we'll have, if things go well, Gabby can jump on, and she'll be joining us to talk about school and some other stuff from the Legend Fiction community. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction, and we're joined today by Scott Hadwin. Hi, Scott. Welcome. How are you?
I'm just fine. Sorry, it's Scott. It's Scott Huggins.
Excuse me. What did I say? Huggins. Where did Hadwin come from? Let's take it again. I'll take it from the top.
That's all right.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction, and I'm joined today by Scott Huggins. Good to have you, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Dominic. Thank you very much.
Now, you're joining us from a classroom. What is it that you teach?
Well, I teach history and to freshmen and seniors. And today I'm actually teaching a professional fiction and professional genre fiction writing seminar. It's what we call a J term. It's a 2-week course. So I take the kids, the kids who sign up. It's an all volunteer course. And I just take them through some of the basics of professional short fiction writing. And we've had a great time. This is our last day, and the kids are on break right now. I said if anybody wanted to come and quietly join us, they could. We'll see if that happens. It doesn't matter to me whether it does or not.
That is fantastic. I'm thoroughly jealous at a historian teaching fiction. I have that's got to, like, the number of stories you got to be able to tell. Well, you've actually got your own story. You've got a novel that I think you've recently published through Raconteur Press, and it's called Through a Spyglass Darkly. And I think as of today, this recording, it's coming out next week. Is that right?
It's coming out in 2 weeks from yesterday, the 28th.
Okay, great. Well, tell us about your book. What's the blurb, and what inspired you?
Well, the book is about it. It really started with an idea that is going to be, I think, familiar to just about any writers, because we all like to write about whatever it is we happen to think is just amazingly cool. And I said to myself, what would happen if you gave Medusa a telescope? And the horrifying implications of that led me to think of sort of a late Middle Ages, early Renaissance Gorgon assassin who could snipe people with her gaze amplified by in fact a spyglass. So hence Through a Spyglass Darkly. This is the story of Jahan Dark, a half Gorgon assassin who has made a fearsome reputation and finds that she does not really want to be an assassin anymore after one of her jobs goes very wrong. But as you can imagine, leaving the assassins is something that is generally easier said than done. So she has to come up with some way to leave and make sure the assassins do not decide to force her back. And her, the solution she hits upon really is, what about an arranged marriage with a king? Do the assassins really want to go up against an entire kingdom? And when she marries King Michael and convinces him, obviously she needs a desperate king, because marrying a Gorgon is not something you do lightly. And she finds a king who is surprisingly a match for her. And then and then adventure ensues. So this is the story of Through a Spyglass Darkly, set in an alternate history Europe where all the creatures of myth and fairy tale really do exist to some
Amazing.
degree or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I hate that phrase, an adventure ensues, because it's like, come on, please tell us more what happens. You throw the word assassin after anything and it just becomes epic. I would never have considered a Gorgon. Have you seen the Netflix series Furies? I think it's a French one.
No, I have not. I
No?
don't have Netflix, but boy, I'm
Okay.
intrigued already.
Yeah, it's an underworld of assassins, and they're all women, and they maintain a balance of power in Paris's underworld, and they're called Furies
Ooh.
after the well, the Furies, because everybody's
Yes.
terrified of them, and they're all super warrior assassins. John Wick, kind of sort of for girls, um, or not maybe not for girls, but with girls. Um, and so the balance, yeah. Anyhow, they maintain things by taking everybody out so that they can continue to be respected. Kind of reminds me of this. Um, What inspired this? Like, I mean, obviously history, mythology is a big. How did you put that together, and then how did you construct that into a novel?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've learned over, as I've been teaching history, is that uh, it's definitely a trope, of course, in all sorts of Disney films. Like, oh, the marriage that my father has arranged for the alliance of the kingdom is it's so terrible. I must marry for love and feeling and romance and everything of that nature.
Right.
And that's the trope we all hear. But the fact is that when you look at especially high level marriages for people, love was very much a secondary thing. I mean, it was basically, hey, you grow up expecting that your parents are going to find you marriage, and it's for the family's survival, and that's not necessarily a tragedy. That's just life, man.
Mhm.
You deal with it. It's like telling kids, yeah, when you leave the house, you're going to have to find a career, and you're going to work at that career every day, whether you like it or not, because you got to deal
Say
with it.
not so.
Um,
Yeah.
and of course we're going to try to find. It's not like people were horrible. It's like, we're going to try and find you a husband you hate. Like, no, you probably get some say. It's like, please, not this dude. But in the end, somebody's going to have to be picked,
Mhm.
and so I kind of wanted to explore is like what am I just got these ideas. Like, first of all, who would marry her and why? And I mean, she wants to do this. Why would anyone say yes? Well, the only reason you'd say yes is if you were in a whole lot of trouble, and King Michael is in a whole lot of trouble because he's got a usurper coming after him, a usurper with the backing of a major power, and they have and they have a horrible magical weapon that is ripping through his kingdom. He needs a horrible magical weapon to balance this out. Enter Jahan Dark the assassin. But he's not going to just let her I mean, they're both desperate, so they are meeting on more equal terms than it first appears. And neither of these people is somebody who's going to get themselves run over. So there's going to be some tension in here.
Mhm.
And I realized the first, when I went to go make this into a novel, the first thing I realized was, good God, I can't just have her run roughshod over her husband. That's going to be a terrible story. So we've got to have a clash of wills, and a story in which everyone plays a role.
Mhm. So fun. Target audience and vibe of the book.
Let's see. I think the target audience, if you liked Lois McMaster Bujold's Kalian series,
I loved that series.
especially I'd say the Penric stories, the relationship between Penric and his sort of female demon is a little bit similar, I would have to
Okay.
say, than to Jahan Dark and her husband. Also, I would say what it reminds me of mostly, and I was very happy, DJ Butler, who wrote the Witchy Eye series,
Okay.
um, he blurbed this book. He really liked this
Oh,
book.
wow.
He recommended this book to a number of people, and in some ways he's another inspiration. So he did this whole alternate reality set about the time of revolutionary America, but I'm doing mine more in, say, the tail end of the 100 Years' War in Europe. And
Okay.
and so, I mean, I've got more weird creatures than he had in his. Although I think he did a really, really deep dive into American history that's got
Mhm.
me shaking my head in admiration.
Wow. Wow.
And I hope as more books of the series come out, I get to do something just as cool. But yeah, that's who I would say. If you like alternate history, if you like historical Easter eggs, if you like, awesome sword and sorcery, rapier and creature duels, I think you're really going to like it.
That's awesome. Can you help me understand or paint a picture for me, like a day in the life of a Gorgon assassin? Because my imagination ends at all the pictures of the myths of Medusa. Um,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
one of the things I had to do is, veils do mitigate her gaze. So she walks around
Interesting.
with veils a lot. I mean, she has to. Everybody else's safety depends on it.
Hmm.
She, one of the major problems for her is, how does she not
Man, she'd be
kill
like
people?
Cyclops from X-Men, wouldn't she? Like popping her glasses down if she was modern day.
Actually, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. Cyclops from X-Men is a pretty good comparison. There are other ways. Some of them come up with in the novel, so I'm not going to spoil them. As
Sure.
how do you? I had to go through a lot of things. Okay, so how do you fight this person? Is there any safety from this person? What do you do? I mean, someone's going to have to have thought, if she turns out to be a traitor, what do we do about her? And yes, people do have that thought, because my characters are not morons,
Right.
and they do think of things like this. But I mean, she tends to travel in disguise.
Mhm.
One of the ideal ways for her to travel in disguise in 13 to 1400s Europe is as a nun.
Mm.
You put the habit over, you put a veil over your face, and nobody, there's a lot of nuns out there. There's
Yeah.
there's hermitesses. They do this. So she is, if she's not in the palace being a queen, she's in disguise most of the time. She has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And as you can imagine, it's a pretty lonely life.
Hmm.
As and she's not maybe as affected as a human would be, because she is half Gorgon, but she is also part human, so it does affect her somewhat.
Hmm. Can she just turn people to stone or anything to stone?
Ooh, just people.
Okay.
Um, and well, people. There are some people that are immune to her gaze. Like, for
Oh,
example,
interesting.
trolls, she cannot affect. They are pretty much stone already.
Okay.
But I mean, animals, she doesn't turn animals to stone. I actually thought about that, and then I just went, "Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous!" She's gonna be leaving trails of stone squirrels everywhere she goes. Stone butterflies dropping out of the air, and I'm
Oh
sorry,
my
rule
gosh,
of
the
cool. I didn't want to
statuary.
deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
statuary business on this would be insane. Um,
Oh yeah.
oh gosh, I had another question and I forgot. Oh, so okay, apart from uh creating a fascinating main character like this, as a somebody who's in love with history and everything, what's one of the most unusual things that you perhaps researched or discovered as you were putting this novel together?
I'm sorry. You cut out for just a second here. What
Oh,
about
sorry,
putting
yes.
this novel
Well,
together?
what was the most unusual thing that you researched or learned about as you were crafting this novel? apart from having a Gorgon main character?
Oh, okay. Well, probably the biggest one was for reasons that will become clear when one reads the novel. So in this story, Europe's history went a very different way. For one thing, William of Normandy failed in his attempt to take over England. So the Anglo-Saxon kings are still on the throne in England. And one of the effects of that was that William of Normandy also lost, his sons did not hold on to the Duchy of Normandy. And that became subsumed in another kingdom that William the Conqueror conquered in our timeline, which was the independent kingdom of Brittany. Now, Brittany's still around in France, and they speak a different language. I mean, most people in Brittany do speak French, but one of the interesting things is that that there's a whole language minority called Brège, and they speak a language, is a Celtic language called Brejonic, and it's still spoken today in Brittany, France. So
Really?
the main language that our people speak is Brejonic, and they call their kingdom by its old Latin name, which is Armorica. Yeah. So what I had to research was what kind of creatures who are not human might you encounter in Armorica? What are the stories that the Brège tell?
Ooh.
They're different than the German and the French and the English stories of fairies and strange creatures. So I actually had to go and research and say, what is in the folklore of these people, and what parts of that folklore do I want to designate as real in this story,
In your world,
and it does come up, and that was fun as hell. That really
that
was
seems
fun
so
as hell.
deliciously niche. How did you find that out? I mean, I guess you would know where to go, but where did you go?
Oh, well, honestly, I did a lot of research online, and I mean, this is one of the advantages about doing something that's this niche is you don't get nearly as many false leads. Oh yeah, everybody knows this is true, and it turns out like no, nobody actually. That's not even true, because people don't make up stories about it because it's not well known enough for people to make up BS about it.
Wow.
But honestly, to find out about this culture at all, I have to give a lot of credit to the great master Poul Anderson, and who is, to my mind, one of the most criminally underappreciated great masters of science fiction of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And one of my favorite book by him is called Orion Shall Rise. And he is the one who, in Orion Shall Rise, one of his heroes is from Armorica, and that's where I first heard the word Brejonic, and that has been just sort of fermenting in my head all this time, and I finally got to do something with it.
Nice.
So that's wonderful. In some sense, this is my Poul Anderson tribute book. Although cool. His story was like post-apocalyptic, and mine is alternate history. Aside from that, they have nothing to do with one another whatsoever.
Except for Brejonic. I want to ask you about your own origin story in a second. But first, can you tell us about, what is it, Orion Shall Rise? Can you tell us what is that book and why is it your favorite?
Okay, so it's partly because I'm a child of the Cold War, and the idea is in Orion Shall Rise, there's this nuclear war, and everybody got pretty much wiped out. The only country that even came through a little bit unscathed was New Zealand, just because they're so far away from everyone. And now you've got a bunch of successor states that are finally clawing themselves up out of absolute barbarism. So there's the Northwest Union, which is sort of American descended. There's New Zealand, which is New Zealand and Australia descended. There's, what was it called? The Dominion, which is French European flavored. And these are sort of the big successor states that are now starting to ramp up into a serious war for resources and maybe a second nuclear war. And our heroes are trying to stop this. And in fact, there's one faction that is trying to put together a fleet of Orion spaceships, which they believe will initiate sort of a new era of prosperity for humanity, but then other people want to corrupt them and use them for weapons, and it's brilliant.
Wow. Yeah, that does sound fun. I think the last post-apocalyptic novel I read was, I think it was called The Postman.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. I haven't read it, but I've heard
Yeah.
I've heard good things.
Well, it's not, doesn't have so much drama and stuff in it, but it's more the idea that communication rehinges civilization. Funny you mentioned New Zealand, because that's where I was born, so I guess I made it through stuff sort of safely. So your origin story, Scott, what's your how'd you get into being a historian? How long have you been an author? Why are you an author?
Oh, let's see. Okay, I'll here. My very first story was published in Writers of the Future, Volume 15.
Oh, cool.
So I was published in the very tail end of the 20th century. That's how long I've been a writer. 1999 was when I actually published something. It's been on and off. I kind of took a hiatus when my kids were born for about 5 years. Let's see. I'm originally from Kansas. I've lived all over. I've lived for a year in Germany, lived for a year in Russia. I live in Wisconsin now, lived in Michigan. And this is my 9th book that I've done. One more thing that Sam and I have in common is that we've both been involved in canon publishing. So this is my story for them, A Cold and Mortal Spring. It's the beginning of an epic fantasy. So I've got 2 books out in that, working on the 3rd right now. Wow. This is more the epic, we're going to save the world from the creeping doom that is eating it. Yeah, go out and buy that one too. It's really awesome. David Weber liked it. I actually am so thrilled that I got David Weber to read this, and he loved it because David Weber is another influence. I mean, I was reading David Weber when I graduated high school, like Honor Harrington is the best. And there's nothing like having an idol tell you that you wrote something that was really awesome. And I've been lucky enough to have that happen twice with authors I've really admired. So David Weber liked A Cold and Mortal Spring, and DJ Butler really liked Through a Spyglass Darkly. That's beautiful. What awesome accolades. Are you a self-taught author, or did you go through a program, or what was that like? I went through, I have a master's degree in creative writing, which was not useful for science fiction and fantasy whatsoever. Really? I did go to the Clarion Science Fiction Workshop, where I got to meet Octavia Butler, Joan Vinge, Tim Powers. That was wonderful. It was a privilege to meet all 3 of those wonderful authors and to be taught by them. So I feel very blessed to have gone through that. And yes, I still remember a number of lessons they taught me. Other than that, I'm pretty self-taught. Okay. Are you, so apart from being a history teacher, by the way, favorite period of history? And I know that's an unfair question. That kind of depends on my mood. I'm interested in, I like World War I, I like the Roman Republic era, and I like the High Middle Ages. So all of those are. Oh, you're a historian. I have to ask you. So what's your Roman Empire? What's my Roman Empire? Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. I someday I kind of want to do an alternate Justinian. Where I do the Byzantine Empire triumphant. I would love to do a story of that. Wow. Although, of course, in this book, in Through a Spyglass Darkly, my Roman Empire is the Holy Roman Empire. So France, I did a mirror. So, in our history, France became a strong kingdom and the Holy Roman Empire became kind of a mess. So in Through a Spyglass Darkly, France is a mess, and the Holy Roman Empire is the strong kingdom.
Got it. Oh, bother. I had a question now. It slipped my mind, but it was, oh, so apart from being a historian, you've got a number of books out. What do you do as an author to let's say grow yourself as an author, or do you just have publishers that publish them, or do you create and do things online to build a brand, or is it more of a hobby for you?
Well, I mean, I would love to say that it was a profession, and I try to treat it as a profession, but I certainly not to the point of quitting my day job like so many others of my fellow authors. Although that would be wonderful if I could. But let's see. Part of the problem is I'm not good at marketing, and I'm trying to be better at marketing. But yes, I have a Substack where I will talk about fiction. I've got a blog. I've got, I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. I link to people, and I talk about their stuff. They talk about my stuff. It's really cool. As far as growing myself as an author, yes, I also go to conventions. I go to LibertyCon. The most reliable convention to find me at is I'm at LibertyCon in Chattanooga in June every year. So come on by and say hi. I'm sure I will be talking about Through Spyglass Darkly there, and reading from it. So please do find me there. I read some of my favorite authors. Right now, I'm sort of drooling in anticipation of Jim Butcher's latest release, which I love Jim Butcher's stuff, and I've met him a couple of times. He's a great guy. Someday I'm going to see if I can force him to read one of my books. I just hope so. But he's very busy.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned you're already working on a sequel for your epic fantasy one. Do you have more scoped out into the future, or are you kind of a one story at a time kind of guy? And
No,
then
I know.
break?
Well, it depends on the nature of the series. For example, Jahan Dark is not, at least not yet, a massive arc. So, for example, if you buy this first book in the series, there's not going to be a cliffhanger. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be another book. I really hope there is another book. I want to write another book with Jahan Dark, but it's more like Bujold's Miles Vorkosigan series, where you get one adventure at a time, and there's not necessarily a huge grand arc. But there's that. If, on the other hand, you read A Cold and Mortal Spring, the Wishkiller saga, that is a grand arc. So that one I have plotted out all the way, and I know how it's going to end. But it's really, it's the nature of the beast. What am I writing and why? And Wishkiller is my grand Lord of the Rings arc. Yes, at some point we're going to throw the ring in the fire, not literally. I'm not that big of a cut and paste artist, but at some point the story will end. Jahan Dark's stories, The Adventures of Jahan Dark, is a little bit more open-ended.
Amazing. Just want to welcome Gabby from the Legend Fiction community. She's the mentor. She runs our creative writing school. Hi, Gabby. Good to have you with us. I'm chatting with Scott Huggins, and he's actually got a novel I think you will love. It's called Through a Spyglass Darkly. And the main character, Jahan Dark, like you mentioned, is a Gorgon who is an assassin in 16th century, 17th century?
Let's see, probably more like 15th century.
15th century? Yeah. And so she can snipe people with a spyglass.
That is so cool.
I thought you
Well,
liked
thank
that.
you.
Gabby is our resident sort of changeling, fascinated with dark fantasy and fae and all that sort of thing. So
well, in that case, I think you would like both Through a Spyglass Darkly and A Cold and Mortal Spring, because I get pretty dark with that one.
Ooh, all right. I love those titles, by the way.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Scott, here's what we're going to do. I've got how much time do you have? I think you said you're on break.
Yeah, I've got about 3 to 5 minutes at this point. So,
all right, well, let's wrap there. Normally Normally I've got a rapid fire series of questions, but I don't want to run over time. So why don't we wrap with where can people find you online? And again, when does your book come out?
Okay. Well, my book comes out on the 28th January, and it is going to be available on Amazon. It's from Racketeer Press. And let's see, online, you can find me at Substack. My Substack is entitled A Drink from the Well. I'd love people to follow me. You can go see my patented happy dance on my page. I just posted that. And I'm on Facebook under my writing name, G. Scott Huggins. And I'm also on X, and I'm also on Instagram.
Got it. Stay busy. Well, I hope that your writing class wraps up well. It sounds like fun. I'd love to have you back and maybe recap some of the things that you walked them through, because
Oh, I would love to do that. That
we're
would
a
be
writing
wonderful.
community, and so we've got this weekly live stream that I'm trying to build up this habit of, and it would be so fun to have you back and to talk more with us, because most of us are a bunch of teens, and there's adults, and all over the world, and we hang out and just want to write together and do epic stuff, and your stories sound like they're right up there with our interests and the kind of people that we are.
Okay, well, that's great. I would absolutely be privileged to talk more about that. Yeah, my class is just going to submit their stories today, and that's because today is the last day of the class, and so yeah, I could definitely come back and talk about that.
That would be fun. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, Scott. And folks, if you're seeing this conversation with Scott, have a look at the links in the description. You can head over to his website and grab a copy or pre-order his book. Or if you're catching it later, just buy a copy, support him. So you can
All
keep doing
right.
epic stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad to have been here.
Our pleasure. All right. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Thank you.
Hey, Gabby, how are you? Good to
Doing well.
have you
How are
jump on
you?
the stream with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been good. We've been going since about, I don't know, 9:30 or so.
I know. Bless
And
your
we've
heart.
Well, I'm a hero, but
Stamina.
it was cool. We had Sam. Sam came on, talked about his book, and we spent about maybe an hour going over some Q&A from the community.
Oh,
And
fun.
man, answering those questions just took way longer than I thought. I was going to try to go through like news. Like there's so much news to talk about, not just inside the legend fiction community. I mean, literally, blah, my tongue tied. I mean, literally turn of the year, like 2026 author trend predictions, and like
Mm-hmm.
Barnes and Noble opening 70 new bookstores last year, and then 60
70?
new, yeah, 60 new
Wow.
ones this year. So there's like market trend report stuff I want to go through that's, I think, very encouraging for authors. So I'll have to do that next
Yeah.
time. Fascinating stuff. And then there's like trends for authors becoming more indie, more self-published because algorithms and platforms are updating. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, we got to make sense of this stuff. And goodness, so much. So it's good to have you on. I'm drawing a blank now because I'm a genius. Were you going to talk about the school today, or are you just going to hang out and we're going to talk about whatever? I think I asked you to talk about something.
I I don't
If not
remember.
particularly, we can chew the fat and shoot the
I
breeze.
thought you were just gonna like hit me with a topic and we were gonna
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
chat. So
Okay.
if it's the school, that's great. If it's something else,
Well, let's
that's
definitely
also
do
great.
that. Let's talk about the school. So this is the first live stream of the new year. For those who have never heard of the school, we now have, well, we've got a school, our first creative writing school. We started as a community, just creating a space for people to write and create. And then we started offering contests, and those started being very cool. Then we started turning them into anthologies, and then we started hosting an online convention. And then we thought, everybody keeps coming in and asking the same questions about how to do stuff. So why don't I grab my good friend Gabby, who's got a degree in, I'm drawing a blank. What's your degree in, Gabby?
Very long and wordy. It's English writing, rhetoric, and technology.
See, there you go. Perfect for heading up a school. And so I'd been through a school for about 2 years, correspondence program, and it was incredibly formative for me a couple of years back. And I thought, well, if we could recreate that, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we can just make it easier and more fun for people. And so we just talked through all the lessons, and we've recorded our first month. So why don't you talk about that, Gabby? What are the goals of the school? What does somebody complete, when they start it? And what are people getting in their first month?
So, what we are looking to give people in this school is a place where you are not just going to learn the mechanics of how to type out a book, because there are lots of places, lots of books, lots of YouTube videos that you can watch that can give you factoids about how to write a good book. And those are great. But there's also another step to that. The way that I always explain it is, I have watched hours upon hours about videos of how to draw and how to act. I am not going to be good at either of them if I don't practice and I don't have someone who knows what they're doing. They've been practicing forever, and so they know the little je ne sais quoi that's in there. If that person is not guiding me and I am not practicing, I'm still not going to get to the point where it's beyond just something that is technically good. And so, what we want with this school is to give you that opportunity, the opportunity to practice and the opportunity to get feedback and coaching from someone who has been through the trenches. You and me, you are a prolific author. I have published 3 times. We both know we've spent years doing this, and so now we are able to first give you the technical bits. That's what the classes are for. They're pre-recorded and they're exclusive to the students. So we give you that, but then we give you special tasks, special exercises that you can do to work that muscle so that it's not just a thing in your head, but it's something that you are actually knowing how to do.
Mhm.
And then what is to me, because I get to participate, the most exciting part is you then get to give me the word count that you've written for that week. And I will give you some actual, real editor's developmental feedback on it. Because not only am I a published author, I am an editor, I run my own company, Bone Piercer Media. And so I get to give you some actual editor advice. Because let me tell you, as an author, sometimes you're just sitting there thinking, I need an editor. I need
Yeah.
someone to look at this. I need another set of eyes because it's wonderful and it's perfect and it's necessary to get feedback from other people, from readers. But then, like I just said, then there's also the point of view of somebody who has just worked with these things and knows what works. And so I am very excited to be able to give that to the students.
That's awesome. When you say people are sending in a word count, what is the word count about? Is it limited to the writing exercises?
No, the writing exercises are actually just for you to play around with because one thing we want to avoid with this school is making it feel like it is school, like academic. Like I have to get in this particular project in these parameters and this number of words or pages or whatever, and I have to do well because I'm going to get a grade on it. That is not what we're trying to do here. Uh, to me, maybe other people find that invigorating. Great on you. I find that very stressy. I'm like, oh, and then I'm not being creative when I'm feeling stressed. So the exercises are just for you to play around with. It's kind of like saying, okay, I want you to draw a flower, whatever. You're not going to be graded on it. Just go practice. Go draw the flower so that you're doing something. The word count actually comes from a personalized writing plan that we give you for the year because our school it lasts 1 year and our goal for you is to have finished a solid draft. Now, not a finalized draft, but a solid draft of either a novel or a little anthology of 12 short stories by the end of the year. And so to do that, you do have to have a certain amount of word count. Now, are we holding you to that word count? No, because life happens. Sometimes a certain week is crazy and you can't make it. But we do want to encourage you to write to get closer to goal. Every sorry, can you still hear me?
Yep.
My
I still hear you. You're
screen
good.
blanked out for a
It
second.
came back.
Okay. So, because that's our goal, what we do is we ask you some questions about the type of book or whatever that you want to write. And then I, based on my experience in the field, will give you a rough word count of what it probably should look like at the end of the year. And then basically, I divide it by not exactly 365 because I give more leeway for, again, crazy days where you just can't write. Sometimes it happens. But I give you a writing plan. And every week you send in a certain number of words. It could be 600, it could be 1,000, it could be like 400, whatever, because, books are different lengths. If you're writing a contemporary young adult romance with a touch of fantasy, that's going to be a whole lot shorter than if you tell me you're going to write an entire like epic political fantasy for adults on the other end. And so when I give you that personalized word count, I give it per day and per week. And that is what you can send, what you can send me
Mhm.
at the end of each week for me to give developmental feedback on. So you will have been getting constant developmental edits on your draft. And so it will have been partially edited by the time it's done.
That's sweet. Can this seems some this is such a Well, it's kind of why we built it. It seems like it would be so incredibly helpful for teens in high school or for
Mhm.
people in, let's say, college or something who kind of want a helping hand. They want like a refresher course. That's all in one place, and then somebody giving them feedback on helping them, make progress on their project, and then it creates a deadline for them, a little bit of accountability, and then a chance to integrate feedback, which is these are incredibly valuable skills to be learning. How do you create? Maybe you just said this. Maybe you can just recap it a little bit. How do you create that custom plan for every author? That seems like it could be a lot of work.
It's actually very, very, very easy. So what I do is I send out a questionnaire and I ask you, what's your name? Do you want to write a book or an anthology? I can't remember all the questions, but I definitely ask you what genre it is, the audience, like the age group audience, is it young adult or adult? I ask you, do you like books that are on the shorter end or on the longer end? And then I ask if you happen to know if when you're drafting, you tend to overwrite or you tend to underwrite. I tend to overwrite. I I rough drafted my latest novel ending, which is about if Death himself was in a world so young that he was only a teenager, and then he goes and hunts killers, killers of immortals specifically. But I
Oh, I didn't know
drafted the
that.
thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I drafted that and it was 145,000 words long, which is overkill. I knew I needed to cut back. I have already chopped off 30,000 words. So I am the kind of person who definitely overwrites and I need to cut down. But some other people might underwrite. They're like, oh, I finished the book and it's way shorter than I thought it was going to be. So that was a very long
Yeah.
way to say that I ask you if you tend to underwrite or overwrite in your first draft. And based on that information, I take that and I Google just to like verify in my mind, okay, what's the long end of a young adult fantasy novel that people tend to publish and people tend to read? Because of course there are like monster brick, books that people will absolutely read, but like in general the average there tends to be like a sweet spot. So I take all that information, I come up with a number because it's easy, let's say 100,000 words, and then basically I divide it by 30 weeks because we do 3 weeks every month and then I give you the fourth one off, and I take 2 months off just for excuse me. I take 2 months off just for, if stuff happens, because again, life, but also so there are times where you're not going to actually write progressive word count every day. You're going to be planning out, you're going to be, reworking your idea or plotting or whatever the case may be. So I take that number and I divide it by 30 and that gives you the weekly word count. And then I divide it by 6. It's because, a day off every week is a good thing, I think. So it's
Mhm.
actually relatively simple. It takes
So
me
what does that
probably
roughly
about
come to? If it's a 100,000 word novel and you've got 6 days a week for 30 weeks,
I am not
um,
gonna do math live. Let me
okay.
type this in. 100,000 divided by 30 weeks. That's like 3,333 words a week, which I probably could have done live in my head. Divided by 6 days. It's about 555 words a day.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, that's easily maybe an hour, 2-hour session.
Mhm.
Um, that's pretty cool. That feels really, really, really doable. So,
Yeah, and especially because, something that I came up with I didn't come up with, I came across it recently. I was like, "Okay, well, how many sentences is that?" Because, we tend to think in terms of either just words or pages, but that can be very vague. So, I came up with an extraordinarily rough, based on just, like, the quickest Google search I could do,
mhm.
number that, like, let's say each sentence is on average 15, 20 words. So, we'll just say 15. That's 37 sentences. So if you can have 37 thoughts,
Yeah,
37 progressive thoughts, you're done for the day. And I have like 37 progressive thoughts, like
37,000.
while
Like,
the cereal goes from the bowl to my mouth.
right,
So
right.
it's just a matter of then, of course, writing it down and you are thinking a little bit harder than like the chaotic thoughts I have at breakfast or whatever. But
Mhm.
I feel like it puts it in a really nice light where it's like, oh, I can do that. I can do
Yeah.
37 sentences.
I love it feels so doable and it feels so very simple. And then to realize it doesn't take that long and you can ladder it all the way up to creating an actual novel. What's the why are we doing it at all? Right? Like there are so many other writing courses and author groups out there that people pay money for. this is one of the early things when, I was saying, "Hey, we should consider doing something like this." And I asked you to go out and have a look at, where are people in pain out there, and why do we think that we might have something helpful to offer people? And so, what would you say after now spending almost a year kind of building this and thinking about this and planning the curriculum, and now we're recording our all the lessons, and first month is now released. Um, yeah, what's the distinction or what's the edge that you see us bringing to this?
One thing I noticed about a lot of other schools is that they seem to be pretty restrictive. And I've even spoken to students of such schools, and they're talking about how the feedback was very rigid. They wanted them to completely like upend their story and change key parts of it just so that it would fit a certain mold better. And the feedback maybe wasn't very kind. It wasn't very encouraging, and it didn't tell them what to do. It only told them what they were doing wrong. And that can be very discouraging for a new writer who is just trying to. I'm going to go back to my drawing analogy. If I draw something and I know it needs work, and someone stares at it and says, "Yeah, this stinks. It needs work." That does not help me. That does not help me as an author. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit for that story. I can't say exactly what the feedback from other schools sounds like because I'm not there, but I know that I don't want that experience to ever happen here. So, our goal here is to be encouraging to take your story and make it the fullest of what your story can be, not take the vagueness seed of the idea that you have and put it in a box. That's not the goal we have here because boxes aren't, well, I'm sure someone finds a way to make boxes creative. But when it comes to writing, putting stuff in boxes is not creative. It doesn't let it expand to its fullest capability. And so
Mhm.
my goal is to share with you, okay, here's how we can improve. Let's make it grow. Here's what you can do, not what's wrong with it. Here's what you can do to make it even better. It's very encouraging. It's very growth oriented. It's very low stress, low pressure. And like I said, thrice published, well, not quite thrice published author. My third one's coming out in September, but twice published 2 novels and multiple short stories in anthologies. I've been there. I know what I am doing, so I can have that kind of eagle's eye
Mhm.
that kind of meets, okay, new author trying to do this for the first time, has a story burning inside them, publishing market. How can I make the two meet?
Mhm.
And that is what I'm going to bring out in you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That right there is already so incredibly valuable. And then there's the additional aspect to this, which is the school is part of the legend fiction community. So you're not only able to meet, other students, you're actually kind of able to be online 24/7. Not that you would want to stay sane and do that, but you could hang out and meet a ton of other authors, read their stories, share your stories, give and get that feedback. So it's not just a school. You're also able to access the whole community. So that's something else that we've not seen other places go. You also get self-paced access to the lessons. Like if you want to, you could sit there and just watch them all. I mean, we're still releasing them, but like once they're all there, you could just pay for access and watch them all, and then come back and kind of go through them again at your own pace if you just want like an instant download. And you get access to the school as long as your subscription is live. But
And on that note, you get access to an editor. I don't know. I'm sure there might be another school out there that does that. I haven't heard of it. You get access to a real editor as you're working on your book. And then when you're done with your book, you get 50% off of any further editing services that you want to do on that project. It's a special deal just for the Legend Fiction Creative Writing School students because I am an editor. It's Bone Piercer Media, though, so it's more than just developmental editing. I do line editing, which to differentiate the two, developmental editing is let's get the bones right. Line editing is let's get the words right, make it sound pretty. I do proofreading, which is let's get those last tricky little errors out. And I also do the media. So I can do book trailers, I can design the interior, I narrate audiobooks. There's a whole lot that's available at Bone Piercer Media. And when you join the school, because we want to get you to the point where you are publishing something that is just beyond professional, beyond the bestseller. So it's not just the thing that will make the cut to be the bestseller, because that's great. There are lots of things out there that can make the cut to be the bestseller. We want to just dig even deeper, and
yeah.
to give you that access, we give you 50% off of
Mhm.
further services at Bone Piercer Media.
Yeah. And if people are reading half of the bestsellers that are out there, they're not all that great. Just
That's
got
what
to
I
admit.
said. It's like there are lots of things
Yeah.
that can make the cut for that.
Yeah, there you go. TC Ross, I think, is in the chat, and she says this sounds incredibly helpful. Thanks. We kind of agree. We hope so too. Um, I'm Gabby. I'm going to swap over to the other tab just to scroll down on this page. Does
Okay.
the the school stay the largest one in here, or are you now like the largest one?
No, I see the school as the largest.
Okay, great, great, great. Chat, if you're seeing that too, that just let us know. That'd be really helpful. So, very briefly, you can scroll down, have a look at this lovely page on the website. It's got hopefully a clear breakdown on everything that we offer, and you can even see the whole month by month curriculum. Now, some stuff might be reorganized, but this is basically where what you're going to go through. This is currently the first month, crafting characters who actually feel human, and then uh, we'll get into plot arcs and then raising the stakes, getting that midpoint, writing a climax, mastering prose and style, dialogue, right? There's so much here. It's a beautiful 12-month program that Gabby's put together. We got FAQs that you can have a look at. You can see her website. We do have these pricing options that you can have a look. If you want more out of your class, you can get more attention from Gabby as a teacher. So for those who have never heard of the Legend Fiction writing community, we are the coolest community of storytellers in the world because yeah, we want to be. And we're working at it and it's happening. The people who are in here are absolutely phenomenal human beings and they're writing almost every day and they're showing up and they're building habits. Um, Last thing that I want to close on for today before we close out the stream are going to be our latest updates for those who have missed them. But as you can see right here, we have open calls for short stories. Like we're trying to build the next level online community for fiction authors. So not only is it one, a community where you can give and get feedback and you can, build writing streaks and you can share stories, with other people and you can, it's private and there's no ads and you're not going to get distracted like a Facebook group. And we have our own code of conduct that prioritizes kindness. So nobody savages nobody, not know how when it comes to your stories. And we work hard to keep that as a welcoming, inviting place. Now, if you're like, I really want hard feedback, I want to grow. Well, you can always ask for that. And then of course people will give that to you. And
I
we
am
also
happy
have
to oblige.
and there are mentors who will also do that too. But as soon as you join, we've then added another layer to this, which is we've got anthologies, and you can jump in and you can either click from the homepage, you can have a look at the open call list, and explore these worlds of stories that we're inviting you to write a short story and send it in. As soon as we get 10, we publish them and we offer a revenue share on these stories. And if we get more stories than we anticipate, then we might just do a sequel. And it's our way to not only inspire you to write, but to also help you start building your author career. We think this is one of the coolest things we could have ever done. We're currently in the middle of a season of the Quilldrake, because that just sounds awesome. So if you build up a 60-day writing streak, you can then unlock the season badge, and then every season there's a new badge to earn, and you can even earn prizes. And we've got all of that in a legend pass in the community. So you can have a look at this legendfiction.com. You can meet Gabby. She's got her whole interviews right there. We're trying to maintain like a weekly live stream habit, and this is one of the first ones of the new year. So we're very glad for everybody who came and hung out with us. It was very fun to meet you. You could see all the testimonials. People love their time, and we love the fact they love their time. And if you're interested, we've got a very special masterclass that we recorded for our last Legend Haven. You can watch the first 10 minutes totally free. Loads of things going on. Of course, you can see as I hover over more, lots of extremely cool stuff because we believe that our cardinal rule is being ludicrously epic. Otherwise, what else are you doing with your life, right? So, last thing I want to run through, we've got 9 epic updates. And this has been stuff that we've been working on and thinking about over the last 6 months, really. I've been wanting to do it. And finally, after we had our last Legend Haven Con, we finally got it done. And they're now up so that we can all start an epic new year together. We have a brand new welcome guide. So as you join, it's one of the first things that you're invited to poke around and have a look at so that you know where to go and what to do. And that way, as soon as you're done, you get a badge for being an epic member. Now, how to be a Legend member, since it's Legend Fiction, that's coming next. I'm still building out that course. So you can press that button right there to see the guide. As mentioned, we do have anthologies. Now we have a clearer process. So before it's less of the vibes of the anthology. Now it's more like a D&D gaming session. Like here's the clear problem, here's the character roles we're looking for, here are the tropes, here's the word count, and here's what not to do. Now there's so much more creativity possible because there are more constraints. So it's now a much easier way for authors to create and create something that's more likely to be accepted because it fits the vibe that we are looking for. We also have, come on, scroll. We also have clearer feedback and clearer rewards. So over the turn of the year, we cleaned up the process for how you submit. We were trying pitches for a while. And we decided let's just drop that and let's us do the work of making what we want clearer so that you can just get to work writing. And if it doesn't get accepted, you maintain, and even if you do get published and accepted, you maintain 100% of your copyrights and you can publish it on your own blog. And in fact, we encourage you to please do that and then link back to the original story. As mentioned, you also get a revenue share. I think it's something like 7% after, Amazon and takes its cut. But all of the participating authors get a cut, and Legend Fiction doesn't get anything because we're here to help you write. And so we divide it all up between the authors, and that happens forever, as long as Amazon endures and other places. We also have our AI tool. So we created a bunch of tools to help you write and to give you feedback. And if you're like stuck, like I was stuck on my story for over a year, and then I pulled up this mad, crusty owl named Olkeen and said, "Here's what I'm thinking, and I'm stuck on my story," and it gave me a bunch of ideas, and they were actually fantastic. And I now know what to do with the rest of my story. I'm able to now get back into writing it. So now I just got to actually do it. Father Roderick von Hogan, who's one of our mentors and friends, he said it's like a Willy Wonka workshop of wonders. They're all free. You can have a look at them and poke at them, or you can totally ignore them if that's not your thing. But they are incredibly helpful. Each one is crafted to help you with a specific sort of problem area of the writing craft. So they're very fun and friendly. We also now have seasons. We did try this once last year, and it was called There Be Dragons. So, of course, we had to come back and do dragons again. We did an anthology back then. So, we're going to do another flash fiction anthology challenge that's going to start maybe next week. I need to make a bigger announcement in the community about that. But over this season, it's a specific chance to earn prizes and to participate in a specific challenge and to earn a badge. So you can have a look at that, and if it goes well, and if we all have fun, we'll do another season in 3 months. So there's a short story challenge. You can earn a badge. You can see the nice little dragon badge, and we have a tournament. This is going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to this one, where you literally um, grab a group of 4 people, and you battle all the other teams to create the highest word count of the month. And if you do, you earn a badge. And if you can keep that badge for 3 months, then you get the season badge. But if you can't keep that streak and somebody else outrights you or another team of 4 authors outright you, then the badge leaves your profile and goes over to them. So, top dogs are fair game. We now have an events calendar. It's also on our website, but as you join, you can now see what we're hoping to get up to in 2026. And it's going to be a busy year. We've got 2 online cons, if all goes well, God willing. We've got 2 online cons, and we have a 30-day writing month, kind of like NaNoWriMo, but it's our version. So you can RSVP to those for, getting those on your calendar. And we have, as I mentioned, there's a Legend Pass. We bundled about $330 worth of bonuses and resources and classes from the school, plus extra things to help you write, because not everybody wants to get into the school. So this is a way that you can either cash in your writing streak, or you can just straight up buy it and get access to it, and it's very, very affordable. There you go. There's a whole breakdown of what's in there. Last 2 things, we have a merch store, which just looks epic. So if you want to rep the merch and live like Legend, I'm buying one of these as soon as I can save up a little bit, because that hat and that tee and the mug, I want all of those. Those are cool. And we are in one right now, bigger, better live streams. We're planning on going for longer on Thursdays because there is so much to talk about and get through. And I'd like to do live editing next week if I can get to it, pull up one of my own stories and just put it under the gun and just rip it apart with all of you live. I'd love to spend time answering questions, from people as they come up. Gosh, and then there is so much news to just talk about or be aware of from opposing viewpoints or whatever. So I'm hoping that we have a better year with our live streams and plenty more guests. So, where does all this go? The whole goal is to make writing feel so fun and friendly that you never want to stop. If we can accomplish that, we're going to have an epic year. So, thanks for jumping on, Gabby. It was fun to spend time with you. Thanks, friends, for hanging out in the chat. And if you have questions after catching this replay, drop them in the chat or drop them in the comments, and I will bring those up and we'll ask them next time. So, till next time, keep writing, and may the Lord be with you. Any sort of closing thoughts at all, Gabby?
Have fun. Enjoy your writing and go practice it.
And go practice it. All right. Cheers, everybody.